Raise your hand if you've been the person chained to the grill all day while everybody else is in the pool, flipping the lid every 5 minutes, poking the coals, glued to the temperature gauge, sweating instead of celebrating. Tonight, we kill that lie. By the end of this hour, you'll know how to build a fire that runs itself. So, this 4th of July, you're with your people, not standing guard over the cooker. And here's the part nobody tells you: all that hovering, it's usually the very thing that's wrecking your cook. Welcome in. This is the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ Podcast, the show where we bust the barbecue myths that keep good people cooking scared. Tell me in the chat, where are you watching from and what's going on your grill this weekend? Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell, and share the stream with that buddy who babysits his fire way too hard. Now, let me give a shout out to the folks who are already in the chat, active, as I say, every show. The energy, the interactivity, your comments, your questions, whether it's about tonight's topic or anything related to barbecue, that flow, your energy, your comments is really the engine that drives the show. So I always appreciate the folks who are here early and loud and proud in the comments. Let me shout out Correctional Officer for Lockdown. He says, "Good evening, everyone. Wishing all a most joyful and relaxing 4th of July weekend." Mama Micah is here. She says she's out for a walk. Had to wait until it cooled off a bit. I love that you're out, getting those steps in. I needed to do that. I'm going to try and do that tomorrow morning. And like you, I like to wait. I like to get it in the morning before it gets too hot outside. Real Meat Stick says, "I'm out here cooking on my offset, feeding it splits every 30 minutes or so." So the Real Meat Stick is out there doing that thing. And I appreciate you, checking out the podcast in between putting a new split on the offset. Let us know what you got going on your smoker. He says it's around 102 degrees today. Woo. And I'm working the firebox with all this extra heat. Today is not the day to babysit this fire. But what can you do when you want to use an offset? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when you're using an offset, you're gonna have to get into that rhythm. You'll know the rhythm of about when you need to put a new split on. Offsets, that's the ultimate of live fire experience, and every split, every fire is going to be different. So you're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to your offset cook. It's definitely not a set it and forget it experience. But I wish you well in that endeavor. But I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. Okay, let's see. Jeff is in the building. He says, "Evening to all. Appreciate Society Brother Jeff here." We've also got Kevin Barbecue says, "Hey everyone, so glad to be here. Good to see you." We've also got the Smiling Family, Society Brother as well. He says, "Good evening to everyone." And another Society Brother, Mike Sue, says, "Hey everybody, good to see you all. I really do appreciate it." And Kevin says, "Happy early 4th, guys." We've also got Society brother Kettle Mania is here. He says, "Hey folks, good to see you as well. You've got awesome Tatum. Yes, where has the grill master been?" Yeah, summertime schedules, get a little bit uprooted, a little different. So I had to make a few changes now that my daughter is back home for the summer from school, and she's got some stuff going on. So I had to make a few tweaks to the regular schedule, and that's why we're here on Thursday instead of the typical Wednesday evening. So I definitely appreciate you all keeping up with us for sure. Oh, we've got a super chat that came in from Jeff. Thank you, Society Brother Jeff. That deserves an applause. Always appreciate that. And he says, "Happy 250th USA." So yeah, this is definitely a landmark Independence Day, and pretty cool that it's falling on a Saturday as well, I think. And let me also give a hearty welcome to Jerry B. He says, "Hey everyone, first time joining. Well, thank you for tuning in. I think you'll find that we have a very supportive community here. So, like I said at the top of the show, feel free to ask any question that's on your mind. If I'm not able to answer it, there's usually someone in the comments who is able to do so." We've also got Hebrew 14720 says he's in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I'm imagining it's pretty hot there. Thanks for letting me know. All Americana is tuning in from Chucktown, South Carolina. Appreciate you guys. Don't be strangers. Grace Day by Day says she gets to listen to the live for the first time. All right. Well, I'm glad you're able to tune in live. I hope this won't be the last time that you're able to do that. And let's see. Yeah, so we've got a lot of folks tuning in. Looks like a lot of folks tuning in from the south or the southeast. We got Awesome Tatum says a heat wave in Virginia ain't no joke. Kettle Mania is in Laurel, Mississippi. Mama Micah is in Richmond, Virginia. She says she's not hosting the cookout for the 4th, but I'm making key lime pie. All right. Jerry is tuning in from Savannah, Georgia. My grill rusted out, so I'm without a grill right now. Oh, no. But, this weekend, you probably can find a pretty decent deal on a grill if you really want one. I would check out maybe the local ads, for the hardware stores nearby. This might be the perfect time to scoop up a grill for sure. Kettle Mania says he hasn't decided yet what he's cooking. KB Barbecue is tuning in just up the road from me. He is in Sacramento. Happy pre-4th to you. Appreciate you tuning in, KB. Let's see. We got, Jerry. Jerry says, I can't decide between, that PK and the new Rectech Bullseye 380. Now, okay. When I think about Rectech, I think I've seen these, but is this also like a pellet-driven cooker? I think it's shaped like a kettle, but I can't remember if it cooks like a kettle with charcoal or if it's like a typical Rectech that works with pellets. And then obviously like a PK. Whatever PK you're thinking about, that's going to be a charcoal-based grill. So definitely two different types of experiences, if that Rectech cooks with pellets. All right, so we got a lot of activity here, but I don't want to delay this any further. Let's get into tonight's topic, or actually, I should say, let me talk about the poll. Take a moment to take the poll, answer the poll question during the stream tonight. The question is, be honest, how often do you open the lid mid-cook? The choices are every few minutes, every 30 to 45 minutes, only when I have to, or I set a timer and walk away. So those are the choices, and I will reveal the results that we have later on in the show and call out what it might be saying about all of us. Okay, I think we got a really good topic though for tonight. Really, a lot of the core, what we're going to be talking about, really kind of sets the foundation, I think, for being a successful backyard cook. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the lie. The lie is that you have to babysit the fire, the belief that if you're not standing there constantly adjusting, fussing, and feeding it, the whole cook falls apart. So, this one is actually pretty understandable. Most of us learned how to barbecue on a cheap grill with no airflow control, where the fire really did swing wild. So we trained ourselves to hover. And the hovering was a survival reflex, not a skill. Here's the truth. A fire that's built right does the work for you. Real fire management is setup and patience, not constant intervention. So tonight is about earning the right to walk away. So stick with me and I'll show you the exact setup that lets you set it and trust it so you can enjoy your company. So that kind of sets the tone for what we're going to get into tonight. Now, let me get back into these comments. Kettlemania says, the venom I added to my kettle helped unglue me from the grill. Okay, so there's an accessory that's available for a Weber kettle, for example, the Spider Grill's venom. And he's saying he's had some pretty good success because the whole purpose of the venom is that it's an automatic temperature controller. You tell it what temperature you want your grill to cook at, and then it will moderate the temperature of your grill based on what you set it. And it's basically going to blow more air into the firebox to increase the temperature. It'll cut the air off when it thinks you're getting pretty close to that desired temperature, and it'll just let it ride if it's already locked in. I have the Spider Grill's Huntsman, the giant Huntsman, which comes with that spider venom controller, and it's doing a great job for me doing low and slow cooks. And actually, I'm going to be talking about this in a video that'll be coming out pretty soon. I noticed that Jeff is tuning in, and I've been meaning to ask Jeff this question because I know that Jeff also owns the Spider Grills, the original Huntsman. How has the Huntsman been for you, Jeff, at high temperature cooks? Because I've been kind of struggling with when I set temperatures to, let's say, 350 degrees, my Huntsman will get it up around 325, doesn't quite hit 350. So I'm curious, and I'm kind of curious about how well the controller works on cooks that are like 375, 350, even 400, super high temperature cooking. Kind of curious about that because I'm starting to have my doubts about whether I should be using that controller for those types of cooks and just use it for low and slow. And then the same for Kettlemania. So you've got the Spider Venom controller on your Weber kettle. Let me put that question or that comment back up. You've got it on your Weber kettle, and I'm curious if you have used it for some high temperature cooking and how that has worked out for you. That's what I love about this community, right? Because we've all got different grills, different accessories, and I love being able to tap into what you guys have got going on. All right, so those are my own questions back to you guys. But let's continue with tonight's topic. So again, the lie here is that you don't need to be tethered, all day to your grill. If you build the fire right, and what I'm really talking about is building a two-zone fire. And I think this is really the two-zone fire, two-zone setup is really the key, I think, to unlocking most barbecue cooks and allowing them to have the type of success that they want to have. So, two-zone cooking, this is the whole game. If you bank your coals, what you need to do is bank your coals to one side for a hot direct zone, and then leave the other side empty so that you have a cool indirect zone. So here I'm showing you just how this looks. Real simple. This is my Weber kettle. And there you see over on the left side, I'm setting it up. Where the coals are, that's going to be my hot side, my hot zone. And where it's completely empty, that's going to be my cool indirect zone. So when I want food to be cooking directly over the coals, that's exactly where I'm going to place the food. And then if I want to do indirect cooking or feel like I need to move that food over and it doesn't need to be cooking at such a hot temperature, then I can move it over to the cool zone. So this is really the setup. I think if you guys remember this, you'll have a lot of success. Here's why the two-zone setup kills the babysitting factor. You stop managing the fire minute to minute and start managing where the food sits. If it's cooking too fast, slide it to the cool side. Need color, bring it back over the coals. The setup gives you a buffer instead of a panic button. A one-zone fire means you're always reacting. So basically, like if you just dump all your coals into the kettle and there's no cool zone, it's just hot all over the place, that means that's essentially a one-zone fire. And again, that means you're always reacting. On the other hand, a two-zone fire means you've already planned for the problem before it happens. And that plan is what frees you up. Now note, two-zone cooking works on a kettle, it works on a barrel, works on an offset, works on an offset, almost anything. So you don't need fancy gear. You just need to remember the framework of this layout. Okay? So as we go through this, let me know if you have questions about the two-zone setup, if this is kind of ringing any bells or lighting you up and making you think you need a little more clarification. If you have a question, feel free to throw that in. All right, good to see you, Grace, day by day. Okay, so Grace, day by day, is Society Brother Aaron Wright. All right, good to see you. Thanks for letting me know that. Let's see. All right, All Americana has a question. He says, hey, here's something interesting. I keep finding DB charcoal briquettes occasionally mixed in with my Cowboy brand charcoal. Same manufacturer, possibly. Okay, I'm not familiar with DB. That's not ringing any bells for me, so I don't know. Maybe that's a new brand. And I think you're saying, so literally, are you saying that literally inside the bag of your Cowboy, you're finding DB, like charcoal briquettes that have DB, like kind of emblazoned on them, kind of like the K for Kingsford, Is that what you're saying? So let me know a little bit more about what you're experiencing there. All right. Why Not Grill 55 is tuning in from Lakewood, California. So that's in Southern California, near Long Beach, I believe. Says he's got ribs, dogs, and burgers going. Have a safe and sane Independence Day weekend, and this remember this, a clean grill is a happy grill. Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. Take the time to clean your grill. Both, clean the firebox, get those old ashes out of there, clean your grill grates, scrape off the gunk and grease buildup. We've talked about here on the podcast different ways, to keep your grill grates clean. Stay away from those wired the brushes to clean your grill grates that have the wired bristles. Stay clear of that because we don't want to see a little small bristle break off and get stuck in the food. Lots of options now available where you can clean your grates without using the wired bristles, and some natural ways of doing it. I like to also use an onion, cut it in half while the grill is still hot, run that over the grill grates. A cheap, simple option that I also love, while the grates are still hot, crumple up a ball of aluminum foil and just run that over your grill grates, and that does a great job of getting some of that stubborn gunk off. So that's a great tip there. Okay, All Lunacy says, good evening, everyone. Just going to open a beer and enjoy the podcast. Hello from the deep South Texas. Hello from deep South Texas. All right, thank you for tuning in and appreciate you checking out the podcast while sipping on a cold one. Okay, correctional officer says I'm putting 250 pounds on the barbecue for my 15-year-old to press Saturday while I am grilling. 250 pounds, that's a lot. 250 pounds of what? Let us know what you got going on. It sounds like a lot of meat. Kevin Barbecue says it's hot in East Tennessee. And Young Geyser says he was in Gulfport last year. Shalom. Okay. And what else we got? Let me see what else. If there are any other questions. Okay. So Jerry confirmed when he was talking about the Rectech Bullseye. It is a pellet. So it's a pellet grill. So he's thinking about either getting that Rectech Bullseye pellet or getting a PK. So yeah, again, totally different experience. So I think a couple of things to think about. Let's see, okay, if you really want more of a smoke profile, if that's something that's really more important to you, keep in mind that 99% of the time, you're going to get a more pronounced smoke flavor when cooking with charcoal and wood chunks than you are with pellets. Basically, pellets are going to give you a more light smoke profile. There are some things out there to help enhance that, some brands. We here on this show, we talk about smoking pecans pellets because unlike the other pellets that are made from compressed sawdust, and a lot of times, even though it might say cherry on the bag, it might just have a little bit of cherry and a whole lot of alder or a whole lot of something else. Unlike those situations, smoking pecans 100% made from the pecan shell. So we like to talk about smoking pecan. That's like a favorite of mine in terms of a brand, and it also produces a more pronounced smoke than the vast majority, or actually all of the other pellets that I have tried over the years. Now, if you want ease of use, actually, that's where a pellet grill is going to shine, because it's got that digital controller. You tell it the temperature you want, and it'll do the work of keeping the temperature in that ballpark. Now, there are accessories that you can get for the kettle that can do the same thing, like the Spider Grill's Venom controller that we were talking about earlier. It does the same thing. It achieves that same thing. I always recommend, if people are really getting into barbecue, learn how to cook with charcoal. I think that's kind of like a universal skill that will serve you well, and you'll be able to cook whether you're in your backyard or at the park or whatever, because charcoal travels. So a lot of different things to consider. You can probably get a kettle. I don't know how much the Rectech Bullseye costs, but generally kettles are pretty inexpensive. So a lot of factors. So I hope that gives you a little bit of more food for thought as you consider which one you're going to go with, and hopefully you'll find one on sale pretty soon. Okay, let's keep it going. Since we've been talking about fuel, this is a kind of a natural segue. So we talked about the importance of establishing a two-zone fire, and how a two-zone setup, two-zone fire, and how that will help free you up. Another thing that you should be doing is you want to make sure that you pick the fuel that matches your day. Okay, so when I say that, this isn't about which charcoal is better. It's which one matches the day that you want to have. What does that mean? Lump charcoal is real wood charred down to carbon. It lights fast, burns hot, and responds quickly to airflow. Now, there are some trade-offs. Open any bag of lump charcoal, you will quickly see that the size of the pieces are not uniform. So irregular chunks burn less predictably and can burn through faster. So a long cook can require more of your attention, just because it's going to be cooking in a different way, unpredictable. Now, on the other hand, briquettes are engineered to be uniform. So if you open up a bag of briquettes, each briquette should be exactly the same. So briquettes are uniform. They're built to burn steady, even, and longer at a stable temperature. The trade-off for briquettes is less raw responsiveness. So in other words, if you want to raise the temperature quickly, it will probably take longer with briquettes. But for a hands-off backyard cook, the predictability that briquettes provide might be exactly what you want. So the takeaways: if you're hosting all day and want to disappear into the party, then lean predictable, and that means briquettes. On the other hand, if you're doing a fast, hands-on live fire sear with the family gathered around, then lump is going to reward that type of a situation. So match the fuel to the day, not to the internet argument, because there's plenty of arguments about which one is better, or briquettes or lump, and then you get into the brand argument. And yeah, main thing to keep in mind, what exactly is your goal for the cook, and then choose your fuel accordingly when it comes to cooking with charcoal. Let's see. All right. Correctional officer says the Rectech Bullseye is awesome for cooking wings. Okay. All right. So there's some hopefully he's got some real life experience with that, but that's good to know. Um, let's see. Now, correctional officer giving me a tip. He says, Al Lunacy is an awesome person. You might want to have him on your show soon. All right, well, we'll clip that and keep that in mind. I love this piece of advice. Kettlemania says, "Hey, get both. Get the bullseye and get the PK." And if you've listened to my podcast and heard me talk, yeah, we are big fans and big advocates of having more than one cooker, having more than one style of cooking is outstanding advice. So yeah, I endorse that comment as well. Get them both if you can swing it. Jerry says, yeah, I like the way you think. Get them both. Correctional officer also co-signs that comment. Mama Micah says she has the Barbecue Guru fan controller for her Weber Smoky Mountain. If she's doing a winter cook or a very long cook, that comes in handy. Yeah, Barbecue Guru, probably one of the first mainstream fan controllers to hit the market, and they have an excellent reputation. I have also had the Barbecue Guru. I also had the other one, the Barbecue Bullseye, I think it might be called. I can't remember. One is large, and one is a little bit smaller. I can't remember which is which in terms of the size. Yeah, they are outstanding though. That's a good option to get a fan controller, especially with like a Weber Smoky Mountain completely. Okay, Kettle Mania. Okay, I think he's answering my question about using the Spider Grill's Venom controller on his kettle. And he says he ran it at 300 once and it worked well. Yeah, like I said, I didn't have trouble maintaining like 325. I was just a little disappointed that I had set the temperature on my Venom to 350 and it only got as hot as 325. So I kind of struggled with that. Jeff, on the other hand, with his Huntsman, says, I've had good luck with high temps, but I learned you need to rethink, the amount of charcoal for higher temps. If I plan to go up to 350 to 400, I use more charcoal, light more to start. And that is exactly the experience that I had. So after kind of struggling at 325 for a long time, when I finally, something in my head clicked, and what I did to finally get it up to 350 was I thought about adding more fuel, but when I looked in there, I noticed that the fuel, the lump charcoal kind of towards the front of my giant Huntsman hadn't caught. You know, it was just sitting, not burning at all. Whereas the center to the back, you know, that's where all the activity was going on. That's where the fire was. So actually what I did was I lit a small chimney of lump charcoal and then I poured that over the unlit portion of lump inside my giant Huntsman, and then that helped kick up the temperature. So I think next time, and kind of in line with what Jeff is talking about, I will definitely light more of my lump at the very beginning if I want to have temperatures in that 350 to 400 range. So I think Jeff, I think you're spot on. So I'm definitely glad that I asked. Awesome Tatum says, I'm old school. I can't do the 2-zone. Now tell me more. What exactly does that mean? Because, 2-zone cooking, not necessarily something that I would consider to be new school. I think that's very old school, as a matter of fact. So yeah, it might not have been called two zone, but I think the concept of indirect cooking or moving your food from, the hot side to the cool side or vice versa, I think that type of cooking has been around for a long time. So I'm curious what you mean by old school and why you can't do two zone. That's an interesting comment. Okay, and then he says, but I mainly cook steaks and burgers. Okay, so I interpret that to mean that you're basically doing direct direct heat cooking, you're grilling. And yeah, with burgers, I mean, that's a high heat cook, so you don't really need two zones necessarily for burgers. But steaks could actually really benefit from like doing a reverse sear. And that's where having the two zones will really shine, if you do a reverse sear on your steak. So I'm curious. I want to know a little bit more about what you mean by that. Uh, he goes on to say, but that's half the fun watching that big ass fire. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting the vibe. You like your stuff red hot. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine, but I think you can open yourself up, to more cooking possibilities if you learn and master two zones. So I would say give it a chance. Give it a chance. Don't give up on it and say that you can't do it. I said give it a shot and see where you land. All right, let's move on. Okay, so the next thing. So now we just finished talking about, choosing the fuel to match your day. So now we're talking about set the vents, don't chase them. Okay. So make the vent logic on your grill smoker, make it simple. And kind of I'm mostly speaking kind of from the framework of a kettle, because I think those are still kind of like most people's entryway, and most people kind of had some experience. So imagine with the kettle, you've got your intake vents at the bottom. Okay, so that's where the air is coming into the cooker. And then up at the top, at the lid, that's where you've got the exhaust up at the top. Okay. So again, make the vent logic simple. Your bottom intake vent sets the baseline. So at the beginning of your cook, what you want to do is open it to match the amount of air and heat that you want the cooker pulling, and then leave it parked there. Okay, so we don't want to be fiddling around, messing around, doing a bunch of adjustments to the intake. Just set it and let it ride. Now, you do your actual temperature control at the top vent. And here's where what you want to do is you want to make small moves to nudge the heat inside your cooker up or down. So what you're doing when you make these, what I call micro adjustments, is you're fine tuning. So you're making small moves and fine tuning, and you're not choking it shut or blasting it wide open. Now here's the exception. Real Meat Stick is cooking tonight on an offset smoker. So they're kind of in another category. But when it comes to this principle, a little bit different for offset smokers. In this case, what you want to do is keep the smokestack fully open to hold a clean smoke and manage your heat down at the firebox intake. So it's kind of the opposite. And that's how you're going to be managing your temperatures on an offset. So if you choke the stack on an offset, you'll keep stale, dirty smoke inside of your cooking chamber, and it'll go right onto your food. The discipline that changes everything What you want to do is, as I mentioned, you want to make micro adjustments. Make one small adjustment and then wait. Give the cooker time, maybe 10, 15 minutes to respond to whatever it is you're trying to do. Be it if you're trying to increase the temperature or lower the temperature. Don't expect that when you make that adjustment up at the top vent that change in temperature is going to be instantaneous. It's not going to be instantaneous. So give it 10 to 15 minutes to respond before you touch anything again. A cooker has lag when it comes to these temperature changes. It's more like steering a boat than it is a sports car. Now, let me tell you why hovering backfires. When you adjust again before the last change that you made at that top vent has settled, what you're really doing is chasing temperatures. You end up overshooting, you panic, you slam it the other way, then you overshoot again. The temperature swing you're fighting is the one that you actually created. So what's considered normal? Normal is a range. It's not a number. So a cooker operating in a 15 to 20 degree window is a healthy fire, not a problem. So we've talked about this a lot. If you're trying to cook at 250, it's okay if your cooker is at 235, even 230, that's fine. It's okay if your cooker's at 265. I would actually say I give myself I'm okay as long as my cooker is between, especially when I'm cooking on an offset. But I'm okay if my cooker is, if want to be at 250, if it's between 225 and 275. I don't see that as a problem at all, because more than likely it's going to average out somewhere close to 250. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if you start to see it move away from 250, up or down, don't panic. Don't start making a whole lot of additional moves trying to nail that temperature right there. Again, you're cooking with, it's a live fire. It's a breathing thing. There's going to be all types of different conditions. The ambient temperature outside. A lot of you are talking about how you're experiencing a heat wave, 100+ degree temperatures. So that's going to be a factor. If the wind is blowing, especially if it's blowing hard, that can be a factor as well. So, all of these things, you're just not, when you're cooking with a live fire, going to be able to just nail it and keep it, right exactly, at that temperature, especially if you're not using an automatic temperature controller. So give yourself some grace, okay? Important. Keep the lid down. Resist the urge to peek and poke. Every look inside of your cooker is heat lost, and it's going to be more time on the back end that gets added to your cook. Okay. Actually, before we get to that, before we get back to okay, let me go ahead and take a look. Let's see where you guys are with the poll question. And so again, the question is, let's see. Poll question is, how often do you open the lid mid-cook? Every few minutes, every 30 to 45 minutes, only when I have to. I set a timer and I walk away. Okay, hold on. I clicked on the wrong thing, so I'm not yet seeing the results. Hold on here. Here's where the live stuff starts to have the little hiccups. Okay, here we go. I think I'm close to where I want to be to see where we are with these results. Okay, here we go. So, 79% of you said only when I have to. So that's an overwhelming majority. So that's great. That's great. If you've already got the discipline where you're not constantly, opening it up to check the cook. So that's wonderful. 79%, 11% say every 30 to 45 minutes. So that's not too bad, but I would say, try and steer clear, trust the process. Let's see. And then 5% each said every few minutes. So I hope you're joking. I hope you're joking. Every few minutes, that means you're driving yourself crazy. And then another 5% said, I set a timer and then I walk away. Okay, so that's good. That's also another good answer as well. I think, especially until you begin to, get a better feel, for how this typically is going to work for you. Okay, let's see where we are. Kettlemania said, perfect synopsis. A 2-zone is going to have thought beforehand into the cook in various times. Yeah, I think, the mere fact that you've thought about setting up a 2-zone means that you are anticipating different situations that are going to come up. Okay, I'm sorry. I was scrolling and I thought I saw a super chat come through, and I was kind of midway, and I should have acknowledged it sooner, because now I'm not seeing who provided me with that second super chat. So I apologize for not getting to it soon enough, so that I could give you the applause that you deserve. If it was you, put it in the chat for me so I can acknowledge you, because I do sincerely appreciate all of the support. Okay, let me see. So as I was scrolling, trying to find that super chat. So let me see, where did I leave off? Kettlemania was co-signing the 2-zone, the endorsing the importance and benefit of having the 2-zone. So, okay. Correctional officer says, I love using a 2-zone setup for my 55-gallon oil drum barrel. Yeah, I mean, we talked about how the 2-zone can work in a barrel cooker as well. He says, I've had my best cooks with the 2-zone setup. And Grace Day by Day asks, how does the 2-zone work on an offset smoker? So the way I think about it is, think about on an offset smoker, probably the easiest way I can explain it is, your firebox and your heat is going to be on one side. Obviously, you got your firebox. So basically, a lot of times what happens on an offset is, let's say your firebox is over on the right. Usually, or sometimes, the right side of your offset, or if you put food on the right side or put food closer to the firebox, that's going to be cooking at a hotter temperature than the food further away from the firebox. So that's a form of having like a 2-zone cook. Another way you might think about that, how you can use that to your advantage. If you know that that's how your offset cooks, you could take, for instance, your brisket, if you're cooking a brisket, and you see that maybe the 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 point, maybe that's cooking not as quickly as the flat. You could rotate the brisket, so that the point then is closer to the firebox. Um, then and then move the flat, so that it's facing further away from the fire. So that might be a way. Or if you're cooking multiple proteins, at the same time, let's say maybe you're doing chicken and then you're also doing ribs, like baby back ribs. So what I would do is I would put my chicken closer to the firebox so it can cook hotter. And then I'd put my ribs further away so it can have more of the low and slow experience. So those are different ways that a 2-zone can work on an offset smoker. Okay, so we were still trying to figure out what DB is. Jerry suggests, did he mean B and N? B and N. Okay, so we're not talking. Okay. I think Mama Micah might have the answer because when I see B and N, I think maybe you meant B and B. And then Mama Micah says, Duraflame owns both B&B and Cowboy. So that's an interesting. So is that what it is? Maybe inside of the Cowboy bag of briquettes, are you seeing both B&B briquettes as well as Cowboy? And I know that B&B, if I'm not mistaken, I think they do put like a B on their briquettes, if I'm remembering correctly. So maybe that's what we're talking about. And Jerry thinks that maybe that's the case too. So not sure if you're still watching to give us some more info on that. Kind of the mystery of the day. Smiling Family asks, any advice for cooking directly over coals, for example, chicken at 325 degrees on the smoke slinger or the Lone Star Grill's adjustable charcoal grill? I usually can't walk away because I watch for flare-ups and flip. Okay, so that's interesting. I guess first, I'd be surprised that you're actually getting flare-ups. Now, obviously, I have the smoke slinger, and cooking at 325 or hotter is exactly the way I would cook it on my smoke slinger. And I think the LSG adjustable would be similar. Um, I, I'm curious what others think about this, because yeah, I am kind of not of the mindset that you would likely experience flare-ups in a cooker that of those sizes, right? Because your chicken is going to be far enough, I think, from the heat source, from the charcoal, to prevent having a significant flare-up. So yeah, I guess my question to you is have you experienced a flare-up? That would be my question. And one thing that I do when I'm doing chicken, and one thing I do just period in my smoke slinger is I do like to, and this would help prevent having a flare up. I do like to put like aluminum pans underneath the cooking grate so that the drippings aren't just going straight into the fire, the grease. I like to try and keep it fairly clean. So that might be something you can think about. I'm not I'm not super familiar with the LSG adjustable charcoal, but I'm imagining that it also has like a second, it has an upper grate and a lower grate. And if it does have a lower grate and you're worried about potentially having flare up. Maybe put like an aluminum pan or some type of a drip pan underneath the chicken. I think that would certainly help keep you from having a flare up. So, yeah. But if anyone else has any thoughts about that, please jump in. Awesome Tatum says, yeah, cleaning the grill is always step one for this guy. Yeah, I think, once you really begin to get into the routine, the habit of cleaning your grill, then it won't be as big of a heavy of a lift, right? So I try to, while the grill is still hot, I try and do something with my grill grates, and get them clean. Like I said, usually either with an onion cut in half, or I'll use aluminum foil to kind of scrape the gunk off. And then I'll come back later and dispose of, the hot coals, let them cool off, and then, get them cleaned up and get the grill ready for my next cook. But yeah, I think you definitely want to clean. You don't necessarily have to clean after every cook, although I've kind of gotten into that habit. But, if you're cooking on a regular basis, I probably wouldn't go more than 3 cooks, maybe 2 or 3, I think tops, before I really tried to get things cleaned up. Because, also you don't want like leftover hard grease buildup on your grates, and you don't want that, especially if you're cooking different proteins, to start to impact the taste of the next thing that you decide to cook. So that's my take on that. Hello, Monkey Cam. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Correctional officer says, this might seem a tad bit off topic, but I have begun to enjoy maintaining my lawn landscape and making sure it's nice before I grill. For a grill station, I want my landscape to be nice. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And yeah, I am one who probably obsesses a little bit about trying to keep my cooking area clean. I have found, especially like with my smoke slinger or an offset, when I'm cleaning out the ashes, sometimes the ashes, they end up all on the ground on top of my grill mats. And I've got like a little shop vac that I like to use to quickly, suck up all the little ashes off of my grill mats. Something about trying to get it to look, not pristine, but, I don't want it to look too dusty out there, So I can relate to that. I think just having things kind of neat and tidy, I think mentally just kind of helps you enjoy the process, right? So I get it. And then he says, 250 pounds of pig iron weights. I have my weight lifting equipment and cage in my backyard too. Okay. So you throwing me for a loop. All right, but no, that's nothing wrong with that. Having your fitness, exercise, your outdoor gym equipment nearby as well. Good living outside. I can dig it. Kettlemania says, I do the same as correctional officer. Had the grill going last weekend, low and slow, while working in the yard. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Awesome Tatum says, I have to include more liquid smoke sauce in my meat. There's your secret ingredient. And then laugh out loud, you pellet elitist. Charcoal all day. All right, now I don't know if I'm being trolled or not, okay? Because I'm not going to be a proponent of using liquid smoke. You got a smoker, generate natural smoke and use that as your smoke ingredient. This is barbecue. We're not using liquid smoke. And then, well, I don't know if anyone can be a pellet elitist, but I think again, pellet grills have their place for sure, and definitely nothing wrong with pairing a pellet grill with a charcoal cooker, or having it as a second cooker. We've talked about that a lot. So there definitely has a place for pellet grills for sure. Okay, All Americana says, I keep finding single. Okay, here we go. So here's the clarification. He says, I keep finding single B&B briquettes mixed into my bag of Cowboy brand charcoal. Okay, so I think we figured it out. Mystery solved. Mama Micah reminded us that Duraflame owns both products, both brands, and it just sounds like, yeah, some B&B briquettes getting mixed in with the Cowboy, which of course then makes me wonder, is there any difference in how Duraflame makes the B&B briquettes and the Cowboy briquettes? Are they exactly the same, comprised the same way, exact same method, exact same everything? Are they just one and the same? So that becomes my next question. So that's interesting though that you're finding B&B mixed in. Very interesting. Okay, Monkey Cam is currently doing a steak in my iron skillet. Yeah, and that's a great way to do your steak. A lot of people, especially, like on the grill, a lot of people get kind of seduced into thinking that they need to have grill grate or grill marks, I should say, on their steaks, for it to be good. Now, I don't know, you could be doing, your steak inside the house, but if you were outside on your grill, a great way, and I think Meathead would be a proponent of this as well, a great way to get that crust on that sear on your steak is, instead of trying to get deep grill marks, getting the grate super hot, or maybe using grill grates, which do a great job of that. A more effective way to get the Maillard reaction all over the steak would be to put it in an iron skillet over hot temperatures, and then you're getting a better sear, a better crust over a much larger surface of the steak. So I think having an iron skillet to do your steaks is a great accessory indeed, whether you're doing it inside or outside. Kettle Mania says, I spoke to a local pecan sheller last winter, and he said I can come get all the shells I can use during the next shelling season. Looking forward to that after learning about the pecan pellets. That's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely let us know inside the society how that goes. You're getting your own natural pecan shells, and maybe adding that to maybe a charcoal cook. That would be pretty interesting. And then he says, pecan wood is one of my go-to woods. Yeah, I love when I can source some pecan. Definitely one of my favorites as well. Jerry is also on the cast iron wavelength. He says, I cooked ribeye in my cast iron skillet tonight with some Silver Queen corn baked in the husk. That sounds fantastic. Kelomania says, I'm going to throw the pecan shells on hot charcoal and see how pronounced the smoke profile is. Yeah, we want to know too. I think that's going to be outstanding. Correctional officer says, I want to use I want to start using just one type of wood for my cook so I can experience the taste. I love pecan and have been combining it with apple and cherry wood chunks. Yeah, definitely nothing wrong with going, strictly pecan, um, or strictly anything else, apple or cherry, or having the combinations. I think all of that is totally fine. And Kettlemania says pecan and cherry work well together. But I get what correctional officer is saying. I think he wants to see if he can distinguish in the taste, um, by just going one type of wood. So yeah, that's I think that's a good project. Good project to have too. Mama Micah also likes pecan wood. Let's see. Kettlemania says, usually if I'm running hot, I'm not going to use the venom to control it. Um, let's see. I think basically he's saying not using the controller, he's able to just do faster, cook it, get it hotter, cook it faster without the controller. And that's also where I'm thinking I'm going to land as well. I think I'm going to end up more likely than not using my controller for the low and slow cooks. And then I think when I want to get it hotter than 350, I'm probably not going to use the controller. I think at least I'll have to try it, at least do it the old fashioned way without a controller. Awesome Tatum says, I'm old school charcoal pyramid guy. What does that mean? You're throwing out all kinds of little things that got me thinking. What is old school charcoal pyramid guy? I'm trying to figure out how does the pyramid fit into this? I got questions. I definitely have questions. Okay. Why not grill says when a bag of lump or briquettes says burn hotter and longer, what is it being compared with? That's a great question. I just feel like that's generally marketing speak. That's the stuff they put on bags, to sell more of it. But we don't really know what they're comparing it to. We don't know when they say burn hotter, we don't know burn hotter than what? Or burn longer than what? Just marketing speak as far as I can tell. Smiling Family, is it true that the reputation pellet cookers get for ease of use is because they are thermostatically controlled? I think that is correct. Why don't more major brands make thermostatically controlled charcoal wood cookers? Yeah, well, I think we're seeing a slow move in that direction. Weber, for example, the smoke ring, is that what they call it? I should know. I've actually got the smoke ring. Yeah, I haven't used it yet. I think it's called the smoke ring. But Weber, that's what and that's what their new, I think the kettle, the performer, I think it also has the smoke ring built in, and they're trying to basically introduce thermostatically controlled cooking to their charcoal cookers. That's where we've seen spider grills, come on the scene over the last 5-6 years, where they started off making the Venom controller and now they're making their own charcoal based grill, the giant Huntsman and the regular Huntsman. We've seen master built gravity smokers, right? They cook with charcoal and they're also thermostatically controlled. So I think we're definitely seeing the introduction of thermostatic controls to charcoal-based cookers. That definitely is entering the marketplace, and I think it's only going to get larger from here. So yeah, I think you're right on. You're right on. That's. I think that's exactly what is happening. Okay, Awesome Tatum says, right. I guess I'm a high heat person, but I'm open to hearing the two zone argument. Well, that's all we can ask. Yeah, definitely give it a chance, give it a shot, and yeah, give it a shot. It'll just be another way of cooking, and you honestly, I feel like you won't really lose anything because if you set it up correct, your hot zone is going to give you the same type of cooking, high heat, direct heat grilling experience that you're accustomed to with your one zone cooking. But I think having that second cool zone is going to open up a whole lot of possibilities for you. You could do 2 proteins and, hot zone for maybe like we talked about earlier on an offset smoker. You can do the same thing in your kettle or something. If you're cooking or a barrel cooker, you can have a hot zone where you've got your chicken and then a cool zone for your ribs. Or if you're trying to time the completion of certain meats, to be ready at a certain time, it might be beneficial, just from a strategic perspective to have your protein on one side of the cooker or the other. Again, steaks. You mentioned you also like to do burgers. So maybe you're doing your high heat, you're getting your burgers together. And then when the burgers are almost ready to come off of the grill, you butter up some buns and put them over on the cool zone. Or maybe you move your hot, complete burger patties, move them over to the cool zone and then put some cheese on them to melt. And you're not going to burn up the cheese, right? But you're going to let it melt to perfection on the cool side. So just, these are just food for thought, right? Pun intended. Okay, I finally see the super chat. Thank you, Kettle Mania. Kettle Mania provided the super chat. I do appreciate that. I'm glad that I finally see it. So again, that does not go unappreciated. Your support really does help keep the live show going. Definitely appreciate that. Mama Micah says, I even cook my burgers indirect. Yeah, give them 15 minutes on the cool side, then sear to finish. Never want to have an underdone center and burnt exterior. I love this approach as well, right? Because when you cook it at really high heat, one of the potential problems you might experience is that the outer part of the protein cooks much faster than the center or the center part. So maybe the outer part is done and you don't want to risk burning it. So then you pull it off of the hot grill, but then the center part has not reached food safe temperatures and it's still underdone. So being able to move it over to the cool side allows you to continue cooking that burger without, burning up the outer part that has already reached temperature. So strategically, that is another great approach you can take. Love all the comments. Kettle Mania says, good point. One zone cooking charcoal setups definitely are for a faster cook. The exterior can be deceiving if the meat interior temperature isn't monitored with the thermometer. So correctional officer is speaking the same language that I just talked about. It's that exact same concept. Okay, here's another super chat that came in. Awesome Tatum. All right. Awesome Tatum coming in with the super chat says, fine, I'll try to zone. Laugh out loud. Well, I'm glad you're willing to give it a shot. That's really all it's about. We're just trying to open ourselves up to new and different ideas because we're all experiencing different stuff, sharing information, sharing the knowledge, and trying to level up all of our backyard cooks. So I'm glad you're going to give it a shot. And definitely, once you've given it a shot, let us know. Let us know, how did it go? What do you think? So I can't wait to hear how that goes for you. Okay, let's see. Smiling Family is on the same wavelength as Mama Micah. Says, same here on the burgers. I front sear burgers. Sometimes I move to indirect once the crust looks good instead of staying direct. Yep. Awesome Tatum says 15 minutes, man, at high heat. I can get those right at 4 to 6 minutes and flip. Okay, yeah. I mean, and you it sounds like you've been doing your burgers for a long time, so you got it down. You got your process down. But like I said, hopefully we've given you some ideas, some other things you can do with your burgers as well. Like I said, maybe adding cheese, getting that bun toasted. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Kilomania is in that ballpark as well, doing the 2-zone for the burger cooks. And then Micah says, I feel like I get more charcoal smoky flavor too when I have the burgers come up to temperature slower. Yeah, I'm a big fan of a smoked burger. I think if you're really able to infuse some smoke flavor into your burger, that's like chef's kiss. You're just adding something even better. Awesome Tatum is in agreement with us. Yeah, keep that lid down. Don't let all that heat escape. And if you're constantly opening the lid, you're bringing in like volatility, inside of your cooker as well, and then you just start to see all types of temperature spikes. Because not only sometimes you lose heat, I've experienced where after you close the lid, sometimes the temperature will really spike, because you've introduced all of that air inside of the firebox. So just a lot of volatility, when you're opening and closing the lid often. Noink, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Says, when I'm using probes, there is no need to look. And that's kind of like, I guess, one of the unspoken benefits of using temperature probes, especially if you've got a good wireless temperature probe. Not only is it giving you constant information about what the temperature is of your meat, and then often it's also giving you a temperature for the ambient temperature inside of the cooking chamber. But having that information takes away the need to look. Yeah, if you know the internal temperature of your protein, and the ambient temperature inside the cooker, why do you need to look? When you know that there's a certain internal temperature that you're trying to reach. So yeah, it definitely takes away that need to constantly be peeking and looking. Okay, here's an interesting post. Let me read this. Correctional officer says, with the Chicago aquarium cooker, there's no need to peek and open the lid frequently because you can see directly the process. Aquarium cookers are special and make great ribs and rib tips. Okay, now see, I have never heard of this. A Chicago aquarium cooker. Sorry guys, I'm let me see if I can pull something up. I was hoping to see if there's a picture because I've never heard of this. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Let me make sure I know where we are in the show. Okay, let me pull this up. I'm curious. Are you guys familiar with Chicago style aquarium cookers? Okay, wait a minute. Let's see. Huh. Is that what we're talking about? All right, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. Interesting. Let me know. Let me know. You guys always, say something that I have not quite heard about. Okay, I know we've got some more comments, but actually a few more things, and then we'll get back to the comments. So let me pick up right here because we've been going on. So let me tell you about the payoff, right? So you've been doing everything that we've talked about, and we've set up our fire correctly. We've established a 2-zone cooking setup. So we've got a hot zone, we've got a cool zone. Here's the payoff. Let's see, wait a minute, let me get that. My little video there. Let me get that guy going. Here's the payoff. So the setup is paid off. Once it's dialed in, you're free. You can be in the pool, at the table. You can be present with the people you're actually cooking for. And that's the whole reason we do this, especially when you're cooking on a holiday like the 4th of July coming up. But here's a few more things you can do. Make it a family affair. Give the kids safe, real jobs. For example, you can have the kids read the temperature gauge. They can hand you tools. Basically, you're teaching them to learn to respect the fire from a safe distance. And this is exactly how the next pitmaster in your family gets made. Beat the intimidation head on. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. A fire you set up right forgives you. That's what gives a nervous cook the room to learn. So this weekend, set it up right Saturday morning and go be a person at your own cookout. All right. So I hope we're giving you guys some good motivation. Quick recap. So 1, again, build it right. The 2-zone fire is going to buy your freedom. 2, pick the fuel that matches your day, not the which charcoal is best argument that constantly rages online. 3, set your vents and then wait. Patience is the actual skill. So we talked about make an adjustment and then give your cooker time to either increase in temperature or decrease in temperature. Patience is the skill. Again, the lie is that you have to babysit the fire. The truth, you build it right and the fire takes care of itself, and so can you. All right. And of course, again, the exception can be the offset smoker experience. You're going to have to give it a little more attention. But in general, with the vast majority of the grills and smokers, cookers that we have, if you follow and learn this framework, it will really help free you up, especially on those days, like I said, when you're cooking for a group and you want to be able to, partake in the fun, and not find yourself tethered, to the grill all day. Okay. Smiling family. Let me get back into these comments because you guys are with it tonight. Smiling family says smart ambient thermometer apps often have a temperature time graph. Pro tip: check the clock when you adjust your vents, then use the graph to learn how many minutes it takes temperature changes and settle. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, many of these thermometer apps that we're using, they definitely, most of them, I think, do have some graphs that can provide you with some good information, and you can start to study and learn from, the trends that you see visually, and that'll also enhance how your cook goes. Okay, P Digits says the equipment I use is the Easy Bake Oven. Does great with cookies. Yeah, Easy Bake makes some fantastic grills as well. They have a pretty good, solid reputation. Definitely another brand that's worthy of a look. I feel like they don't get as much attention, but they've been around for a long time, making very solid grills. Why Not Grill says to help control temperatures, make sure there are no air leaks between the base and the lid. Yeah, that's a good point too. And if you do begin to see air leaks, then you may have to do a little bit of repair work um, on the gasket around your if your grill, like a lot of the ceramic cookers, for example, they have a gasket, and sometimes they start to come loose, and you may need to replace the gasket. But yeah, definitely you want to pay attention in those types of situations. Well, you're quite welcome. Grace Day by Day says thanks for explaining the 2-zone offset cooking method. Smiling Family says, I did exactly what you just said about chicken and ribs on an offset last week, except with beef ribs. Yeah, again, you can definitely strategically utilize, the 2-zone or different temperatures inside of your offset smoker or any other cooker that you have. If you've got a 2-zone cooker cooking setup going, you can definitely utilize the different cooking temperatures inside of your cooker and strategically cook different proteins at the same time on the same cooker. So 2-zone setups definitely open up that possibility. It gives you more flexibility with your cooker. Okay, I got it. I want my baby back ribs. Okay, if I say it too many times, I'll trip myself up. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm gonna read it, even though I kind of want to stay away from the charcoal. Who makes the best charcoal argument? But I'll read it. P Digit says once Duraflame bought B&B, they added fillers to the charcoal. I love the old B&B, and we've talked about this. I think the new B&B, I think it's still okay. I mean, ultimately, I don't think there's going to be enough like fillers, additives, whatever, to present any kind of harm. And remember that charcoal is really the purpose intent of charcoal is to provide heat, while smoke flavor comes from the wood. So I don't know. I try not to get too hung up. Too hung up on the whole argument that's kind of been, I've noticed, raging this spring, this summer about, how briquettes are being made. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Mama Micah says, if you have Ace Hardware nearby, try the new Meat Church briquettes. They are just like the old B&B. Oh, that's a good tip. I do have a bag of the new Meat Church briquettes, and I haven't tried it yet. And since you mentioned Ace Hardware, and I did put this inside of the society, if you don't have a problem with the new B&B, this weekend, starting tomorrow, July 3rd, on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Ace Hardware will have the new flag bag B&B briquettes for $7.99 a bag. So that's $7.99 for a 17.6-pound bag. I think it's a great deal, and I plan to get my 5 bags. I think it's a 5-bag limit. And P. Digit says he already purchased 5 bags. I've got issues. Okay. Mama Micah got 4 bags herself. I think Mama Micah's talking about maybe the Meat Church. Anyway, okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of folks are in the comments saying they're going to try the Meat Church briquettes. One thing I noticed about the Meat Church briquettes is they didn't really emphasize or talk about like what they're composed of, how they're made, and yeah, so a little interesting. And actually, I take that back. I have tried the Meat Church briquettes because this just jogged my memory. Actually, got a video coming up. I'm not sure when it'll hit. It's being edited right now, where I did look at Meat Church briquettes. I also looked at the Good Charcoal Company. They sent me some briquettes to try. And let's see, there was one more. Oh, and I also looked at the Fogo. I took another look at the Fogo coconut. Excuse me. The Fogo coconut shell made briquettes because they burn hot and clean. I took a look at those 3 and found some interesting results. So be on the lookout. We'll have a video out pretty soon. But I do, trying to remember the outcome. I do remember that the Meat Church briquettes, I mean, they definitely cook, hot, and they met all of the requirements. So they look pretty solid to me. Just the only thing I did take away or notice was that they don't really provide much information about how they are being made. And I think they may have been one of the bags that kind of said something like, burns hotter and lasts longer. I may have seen something like that on that Meat Church bag. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, lots of comment. We can definitely go down the rabbit hole when it comes to looking at the different charcoal bags. But again, the main point to take away for tonight is to, pick the fuel that matches the intent of your cook. And we talked about how the briquettes are going to give you more stability for a long cook, and then lump might be better because it gives you better reaction, gets hotter faster, and that might be better suited if you're doing a quick, shorter cook. And especially if you want to, if you're cooking in front of your crowd, your guests, you can kind of wow them with a nice, hot, fast cook with some lump charcoal. Okay, correctional officer, we're all about safety here on the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ Podcast. So he reminds us that fire safety is paramount. Please be careful if you opt to grill on a wooden deck Always have a fire extinguisher and wear eye protection and have safe gloves worn too. Always a nice apron as well. So a lot of great tips there from correctional officer. And yeah, definitely, take the time, make sure you've got a fire extinguisher nearby. You never know. You can never predict that one time that things might get away from you, and then having that extinguisher nearby can really make a big difference. Okay. Let's see. Smiling Family says, I don't get flare ups too often, but I stand by to watch for them just in case so that I can handle them quickly. It usually only happens when I use splits along with the coals. Okay, I think this is back to the question I had for him about whether or not he's experiencing flare ups when doing chicken on his Lone Star Grill's adjustable. So yeah, I think again, maybe having a drip pan, might give you a little bit more peace of mind, because we never want to say that you can never experience a flare up. Um, but yeah, I also kind of think if you do experience one, I think it'll be quick. I think it'll be like a second, 2 seconds, and then I think it'll be over. Because chicken, unlike, because here's what I'm thinking, chicken, it's gonna drip, it's gonna have some drips happening, but it's not producing the same type of um, grease, I don't think, as like ribs, as like ribs or maybe brisket. So again, I think it's kind of going to be a little bit of a rare occurrence, but definitely, don't want to overlook that possibility. Okay, P Digits, I think we're talking about the Meat Church briquettes. Says the only place they're sold now is at Ace Hardware that I know of. Yeah, and that's the only place that I've seen the Meat Church briquettes. Okay, and he says he was able to grab mine for $15 to $17 a bag. Uh, okay, we got some comments here about we're not fooling with the liquid smoke. Okay, so again, got this question: what's the difference between the Cowboy and B&B? So yeah, for briquettes, I have that same question since they now apparently are both owned by Duraflame, and we had someone watching um, who said that he was finding some B&B briquettes inside of his Cowboy briquette bag. So I'm kind of wondering if there's really any difference between how the two are made. Um, let's see. Noink says, FYI regarding B&B briquettes, the formula has changed since Duraflame ownership. Meat Church now has charcoal briquettes produced from the old B&B factory in Mexico. Okay, that's an interesting tidbit. I didn't know that Meat Church found an opportunity and they're making their briquettes from the old B&B factory in Mexico. So that's interesting. Awesome Tatum says, I'm so confused. Meat Church or B&B? I say between the two, me personally, get whatever is cheaper. That's what I would do. I think again, charcoal is really for heat. And ultimately they all are going to get your grill hot. So I think getting overly concerned and caught up about, all these other things, elements, how it's made, if it's got, fillers or blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, I think it really just comes down to, can it get my grill hot so I can cook the food? So for me, I'm going to go with what's cheaper. P Digit says, I use a vortex and use my cast iron grates. Cook the steak indirectly and finish at the end over the vortex to get the grill marks. Okay, yeah. Like I said, I think the grill marks, I still kind of feel like it's kind of one of those vanity metrics, kind of like the smoke ring. Like we all love to see a good smoke ring, right? After we've been smoking something for 8, 9 hours. I kind of feel the same way about the grill marks. They look great, but they don't necessarily tell the whole story about how good that steak is going to taste. But that's just my take. But I do think that using cast iron grates will help you achieve very nice grill marks for sure. Okay. Let's see. Mama Micah says the old B&B charcoal was different. They changed it recently. The Meat Church charcoal is pretty much an exact match for the old B&B that most of us liked better. Okay, you guys are saying something. So that's interesting. So I guess if you're really looking for that old B&B experience, maybe try and stock up on the new Meat Church. And several of us have reported that we've only seen it so far available at Ace Hardware. Okay. If the B&B bag has the stars and stripes on it, it's the Duraflame version with fillers. Meat Church has the old formula of B&B now. Okay, I can't confirm, any of this. So I'm just kind of taking you guys' word for it. Yeah, but again, I've been using the Stars and Stripes B&B, and it's fine for me. I think it's fine. Okay, all right. Here's a question. Monkey Cam asked, do any of you order from Omaha? Do you mean like Omaha Steaks? Is that what you mean? If so, I would say there are a ton of, not that I have anything against Omaha, but Omaha Steaks, they kind of, they've been around a long time and they've got the marketing thing nailed, right? But there are a lot of options available online. So I would say, don't necessarily focus, if you're talking about Omaha Steaks, on them in particular. I think there are a lot of, like Porter Road, why am I blanking on Creekstone Farms? There's a lot of options, and then even some lesser known, maybe local rancher or places that will sell meat ship direct to your home. A lot of options available to look at. So look for the ones that have the proteins you want, that have a good reputation for packing the meat well and shipping it, and it being the quality of quality that they talk about, and maybe give a smaller outfit a look as well. Okay, Awesome Tatum says, yeah, there's also a classic Weber kettle grill with the temperature gauge on the grill. Yeah, I know Weber from time to time, will come out with kind of like a unique, and I think I've seen a picture of this, but like a classic Weber kettle, but having a nice built-in temperature gauge. Kettle Mania says he's had a negative ordering experience from Omaha. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, don't fixate so much on Omaha. I think 15, 20 years ago, yeah, I think that's probably, the way to go. That was what most of us had heard of, but now there's just so many different options. We definitely don't have to necessarily go with Omaha. Awesome Tatum says, love this channel because I get different ideas versus what I already know. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's part of the, the community. And that's speaks for me as well. Reading through all these comments, and you guys are bringing information that I'm not aware of either. So it's reciprocal, where I get ideas all the time, from the things that you guys talk about. And that's why I say your comments are the engine that truly drives the show, and it motivates and heavily influences, what I talk about in terms of podcast topics. And I really do appreciate you guys and the fact that, the topics and the things we talk about resonate with you. So that is incredibly important. Kettle Mania says, I buy from a local butcher 80% of the time. Yeah, support your local butchers. We want to keep local butchers. We want to keep that. We want to keep butchers around. We don't want to see them disappear. And they are truly important, especially for us. And when I say us, I think of us as we're not the typical consumer. We really care. We care about the quality, right? We want good proteins because we want to have outstanding cooks. And I think being able to have a reliable local butcher is critically important, especially if it is like a unique or a specialty cut or something you can't necessarily source at like your Costco, Sam's Club, or Kroger or whatever. I think it's really important to be able to have a good butcher. Correctional officer says, I like one zone for my cooks because my pullback is much better for my ribs. Okay, so like I'm right now in the camp for I'm doing my spare ribs. I like doing them at like 325, 350 throughout the cook. I did a video where I showed my process for doing my ribs on my smoke slinger and able to get them done in like 90 to 100 minutes. So that's like a high heat, direct heat cook. So definitely, different. And that's part of, again, the beauty of what we do here with our grills, our smokers, is we explore and then find, the style of cooking that we think is going to best suit the job. So being able to have those options, high heat for certain situations, low and slow for other situations, being able to have, the flexibility and that all these things in your toolkit will make you a much better cook in your backyard. I think still talking about Omaha, folks have heard negative reviews. I think that's what Mama Mike is referring to. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, Jerry says, I have ordered Omaha as gifts for out-of-town family, but I prefer my local butcher and grocery stores. I think there are better deals from Omaha these days, too. Check out Edwards or New Brunfeld's. Right. Let's see. But for my personal cooking, I buy local. And then on the 2-zone thing, Awesome Tatum concedes. You nerds beat me down. Hey, I'll take it. Oh, and we got another super chat that came in from P Digits. Yeah. Hewing is Ewan. Learn the basics, try new things, and add your spin. That's a perfect way to put it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even when you guys see these recipes, these barbecue recipes on YouTube, and you follow the recipe, don't be afraid to add your own spin to it, make some tweaks, modify it, make it your own. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Mama Micah says, the Monument brand now has a gas grill with a glass panel lid. I don't need a gas grill, but love the idea of being able to see into the grill just like my kitchen oven. Yeah, and I see some high-end pellet grills, I think also have like a see-through lid where you can see what's happening on the inside. I know with pellet grills, once you start to get into that, that world of comfort, the price goes up, keeps going up. So for me, I think it's a little bit overkill because I wouldn't want to pay to have that premium feature on my pellet grill. And yeah, I can see it being also available as an option on a gas grill. And I would guess that gas grills that have that option are also going to be probably more expensive than not. Correctional officer confirms the Chicago Barbecue Aquarium cook is Chicago barbecue history. Ooh, yeah. So I hope that I make it back to Chicago. And if I do, I'm definitely going to have to remember that and see if I can see the Chicago Barbecue Aquarium in person. That sounds pretty interesting and cool. P Digit says Monument is a solid brand. Got a 2-burner griddle from them. Great to travel with. All right, that's good info. A lot of you guys, okay, you guys are familiar with the Monument brand. Kettlemania says, I have one of those gas Monument grills with the glass window. The grill works great. High BTUs. The window is a bear to keep clean, though. That's good to know. Awesome Tatum says, I'm so anti-gas grill, but I admit that does sound cool. Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. Yeah, you guys have probably heard me, don't get a gas grill. But I know Meathead would come on here and say he loves gas grills. And I think it's because of the easy control. And my response to that, my retort to that is always, you can get a pellet grill that is just as easy to use as a gas grill. But with a pellet grill, at least you are cooking with wood, and you're going to get some degree of smoke flavor. So that's kind of my consistent argument there. Awesome Tatum says, hey, correctional officer, when are we doing those turkey burgers? Yeah. And Awesome Tatum says, or correctional officer said back, let's throw down on Saturday and put the pictures in the society. I want to see proof that you guys actually did it. And yeah, you guys have been talking about this for a little while. So it's definitely overdue. All right. Okay, P Digit said, awesome. I learned my heat and meat on a gas grill. Also, my wife doesn't always want the smoke taste in her food, so they do have a place, just not my go-to. Yeah, and see, I would still argue in favor of a pellet grill because they do have a lighter smoke profile. Like I'm thinking, you get a pellet grill, cook with like the fruit pellets like apple pellets or cherry pellets, and it won't be as pronounced, the smoke flavor. Worth considering. But okay, I will concede that there is also just as I argue that there's a place for pellet grills, I'll concede that there are some situations few and far between that I think gas grills, there's a place for gas grills too. And I say that all, tongue in cheek. Gas grills count too. All right. All right. I'm trying to see. Okay. I think we worked through just so many comments. Love it. Um, okay. Here's another question. Kind of keeping this going. Mama Micah says, have you ever tried the Fogo coconut briquettes? Zero smoke flavor. They burn so clean. It's almost weird. Super hot too. I like the performance, but I miss the smoke flavor. Yeah, hold on, let me get a sip of water here. Okay. Recently I tried another a local Georgia-based company called Nakia Coconut. I tried her coconut-based briquettes, and that was my observation. They burn really clean, burn really hot, super hot, just like what Mama Mike is saying about the Fogo. And then that got me rethinking about Fogo's coconut briquettes, because unfortunately the Nakia briquettes, Nakia charcoal is not widely available, whereas Fogo's coconut briquettes are much more easy to get. Um, Definitely seen the Fogo at, I think, Home Depot and probably at Ace, maybe at Lowe's too. Um, and I think it's similar, that they burn really hot and really clean. And yeah, when you get them really hot, like 400 degrees, you can barely see any smoke and probably not getting any smoke flavor. I mean, not that you're supposed to, off of those briquettes. You definitely want to cook with some wood chunks, supplement that to get your smoke flavor. Okay. I see you guys are talking about doing some type of a turkey challenge. So I would be more than happy to referee if you guys are serious about doing a smoker or a turkey challenge and posting it up into the society. All right. Highway Speed says, any tips for using a Hunsaker? Hunsakers are really easy to use. Drum smokers in general. I guess what I would say, especially with the Hunsaker, first, once it comes up to temperature, make sure, with your foot that they've got that lever down at the bottom of the drum. It's got the start position where the intake at the bottom of the drum is wide open. So that's where you want to have it when you're starting the fire, getting things going. But then once you've dialed in the temperature, or actually once you begin to increase temperature, a lot of times what will happen at the beginning is that you'll probably go a little bit over the desired temperature, or you're creeping towards it. At that point, you want to slide that lever from the start position to the run position, and that'll basically, I think it'll have it like halfway open, and then you'll make all your other adjustments at the exhaust. But very important that you don't leave it in the start position throughout the cook. And what I found, really, once you kind of hit your desired temperature, just like we talked about throughout this show, if you feel the need to increase or decrease the temperature, you're going to do that at the exhaust up at the top above the drum. And you're just going to make small adjustments. Make a small adjustment. Opening it a little bit wider or closing it a bit more shut. Give it time. Give it about 10, 15 minutes. The Huntsakers don't take a whole lot of time to adjust in terms of temperature, so definitely 10 to 15 minutes before you do anything else. So really, it's all about fire management, temperature control, and the advice I give you is just remember you don't have to do anything dramatic. Everything should be incremental, small adjustments, and you should be fine. With the Hunsaker. Okay. Seeing if there's anything else. Okay. Let me also, we've been talking a lot about the doing like a challenge inside of the society. So let me also take this moment to say, if tonight clicked and you want me in your corner on your own setup, that's exactly what we do in the VIP tier of the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. Monthly Pitmaster workshop calls with hot seat coaching, where I'll walk through your fire and your cooker with you live. And we're going to kick that off pretty soon. But then also, if the middle tier, which is the inner circle, and there we do like a monthly kind of like a monthly Zoom call where my camera's on, but so is yours, and as a group, we get together and chop it up about barbecue. That's in the inner circle. So if that's, where you'd like to be, that's cool. Or, if you just want to be in the free tier of the society where we've got kind of like those Facebook barbecue groups, but no distractions. It's just strictly us talking barbecue, and we support each other just like we do here in the comments, raise topics, answer questions, share pictures. All of that's going on at the free level. So whatever one you choose, perfectly fine, no pressure at all. If you're not already inside the society, take a couple of minutes to sign up and join. Love to see you in there. Go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society. Pick the tier that's best for you, and let's keep the conversation about barbecue going all week long. All right, as a reminder, if you haven't already, and I don't know why you wouldn't, please hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend about what we're doing on the live podcast, and then, hit that bell. That's right. I knew there was something else. Hit that bell for notifications so that you will not miss out on a single episode or video that I drop. All right, you guys, we will be back next Thursday. Like I mentioned earlier, kind of had to make an adjustment to the summer schedule to accommodate some things going on here at the Robinson house. But we'll be back next Thursday, July the 9th, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I want to wish all of you a very happy and safe 4th of July. Get out there, cook something. If you're in the society, share the pictures with us. We want to know what you got going on over this 4th of July weekend. But most important, go enjoy your people. Remember, if you follow the principles that we talked about tonight, the fire's got it, and it's got you. I'll see you next week.